Welcome back. In this video, we are going to do the final preparation for then finally adding the sign up functionality. So we're still not going to have the sign up functionality itself, but at least we're going to have everything prepared so that we can then finally use Firebase correctly. So far, the only Firebase stuff that we had was to get the current user, where we used the Firebase auth to get the instance and then to get the current user and then its user or its unique ID. So every user has a unique ID. Okay. So we have this base activity which we prepared in the last video, right? And it's of type app-compat activity. Now we want to reuse this base activity, or we want to inherit from this base activity in our signup activity, because we want to be able to use all of the functionality of an app-compat activity, but at the same time of our base activity, which contains features such as displaying the snack bar when an error occurs or displaying the progress dialog. All right. So in our signup activity, let's go ahead and create two functions. One is just gonna be there to validate a form. So private fun validate form, where we have the name and the email, and then finally the password. And it should only have two S's, password, which is also of type string. Okay, so we get all of those values, and then we want to see if what we have gotten is not empty. So we want to basically just see, has the user entered something or not? So we're just gonna return when the text utils is empty. For the name, what do we want to execute then? Well, we're just gonna show the error snack bar, and we're gonna say please enter a name, and we're gonna return false in this case. So you can see that this function should return a boolean. Okay, so here at the top, let me bring that in 2 lines. So here, validate form, name, email, password, and it's gonna return a boolean. So when false, return when false. But then what other options do we have? Well, we have the other option where the text is empty for the email. So here, let's replace this with email. Please enter an email. And then the last one, well, to be precise, email address. All right, let's just do that. Okay, and for the last one, it's the password. So we're checking, is the password empty? If it's empty, please enter a password. Should be displayed to the user. And otherwise, return true. Actually, it's just going to be true. All right, so here, of course, else needs to also be in a lambda expression. So else return true. Okay, so this is the idea of this validate form. Now, of course, we need a function which will use this. And I'm just going to create a function which will register a user. And for now, it's just going to prepare everything. So private fun register user, where I have the name, which will be of type string, and which we get from et name dot text to string. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to trim a little bit. So let's say the user has entered a empty space somewhere in between, then I want to clean that up as well. So trim curly brackets it less equal empty space. Okay, so this is how you can trim something. So you can trim, for example, an empty space that the user has entered at the end of the email address or of the name. This happens quite often when you copy and paste something, right? Then we have the same thing for the email. So let's do this for the email, which is also a string, but it's et email. By the way, where do I get them from? Well, they are inside of our activity signup XML. Okay, so that's where I'm using those from. Same for et email. It's this one here. And then let's do the same thing for the password. So here, password. Now the question is, do we actually want to trim an empty space or not? Maybe the user has edited an empty space in his email address, but I'm just going to assume that it's not the case, or I mean in this password, but I'm just going to assume that it's not the case. So I'm just going to trim it in the password as well. So if you have an empty space in your password, it's not going to work with our application. So this is something that you can potentially leave out. It really depends on how you design your login features or your sign up features. Okay. So if we validate the form with all of those names and emails and everything, and it returns true, then we want to actually register the user. So only if all of those values have been entered, here the name, the email, the password, and then the user pressed sign up, at that point we want to sign him up, but only if he entered values. Okay, that's the idea behind this validate form. And for now we can just do something, a basic toast, to see that we can register a user. So let's just test it real quick. So I'm just gonna paste this little toast in here. Now we can register a new user. Or we could write something like registration complete or worked or whatever. Okay, so of course we need to call this function somewhere, register user. Where would be a good point? Well, once the user pressed this button here. So let's look at the button. What's it called like? Let's scroll down. It's called button sign up. So if button sign up is pressed, so set on click listener, call register user. Okay, so at this point the user clicked the button and our register user function should be triggered, where we get the name, email, and password from the edit text. Then we validate if they're empty or not, and if they're not empty, we write something like now we can register a new user. And of course here at this point we would then actually do the registration in Firebase. Okay, so I'd say let's just test it. And when running it, we are getting an error here where it says file Google Services JSON is missing. So we need to add it in order to use the Google Services plugin. And yeah, let's just do that. Therefore, you can go to your project in Firebase, then to the project settings. And here on the general, scrolling down, you will see that there are no apps in your project yet. So we can add an app. In this case, we're going to select the Android icon here. And here we need to enter the name of our project. Okay. So it's just going to be this name here. In my case, it's eu.tutorials.projectmanage. And that's why it's important that you have unique names, right? So you should, of course, call your project differently. And you can add an app nickname if you want to. And you could also add the signing certificate SHA optional, but I'm just going to register it with the package name. And if that shouldn't work just with the package name, then you might need to add the other elements as well. So there you can see you have to go to project and then drag it into your apps. So let's just download this file. Then save it here, or save it somewhere where you can find it. And then go to your project. Then select project here at the top left. So you need to move over to project, because usually I'm using Android because it's more convenient, right? But then when in project, you can open your project, then you can open the app folder, and that is where you need to drag it. So I'm just gonna drag this Google Services JSON file into the app folder. And I'm just gonna press OK. Once that is done, we can go back to the settings in Google Firebase here and press next. Here you can see that it says that we should make some changes to our project level build Gradle, which is basically what we have done before. All right, so on the app level, you need to add this implementation, and on the project level, you need to add this class path. Okay, and if we look at our project, we can see that we already had added that. Okay, so if I move back to Android now, it's a lot easier to find it there. So here, build Gradle. That's where we added this implementation, right? Implementation Firebase auth 19. And in the other one, in the project build Gradle, we have added this class path com.google.gms Google Services 433, which is the same as you can see here, and here the implementation as well. Also the plugin, by the way, you can see that we need to use this plugin, but we've added this already. Okay, and then we needed to sync it, but we already have done that. So let's press next and see if it's going to work. And of course we need to run our app to verify it. So let's do that real quick. Let's run it again. Now this time it's hopefully not going to crash. And this can take a little longer than the times before. As soon as it's done, it's installing and launching the activity. So it's launching our application, and then we can check again if it's gonna communicate with the servers. And in case it doesn't, what we can do is we can go ahead and uninstall this application. So let's uninstall ProJManage. And as you can see, I have multiple iterations of it. So hold, press, drag, uninstall. And once you uninstalled it, let's run it again. Okay, this time it was a lot quicker. And now let's see if the app starts communicating with the servers. In case it doesn't respond or doesn't change here within a couple of minutes, you can just go ahead and skip that step. It still might work later on, or it still should work later on. But you will see that your apps, you will find your app here, and yeah, you can just then go ahead and use this app inside of Firebase or with Firebase. All right, at this point, let's go ahead and test our application because we prepared so much stuff. So we're in the sign up screen. Now let's press sign up, and you can see, please enter a name because there's no name there. So let's enter a name. Let's enter an email address, email@email.com. So here at email, in this case, it's going to be imnail.com, and the password is going to be 123456, best password ever, and then sign up. And we can see now we can register a new user. Of course, we're not communicating with the server at that point, but that's what we're going to add in the next video, or maybe later. All right, so see you in the next one.